Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Well, let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, today's first story comes from a forum from the Entitled People subreddit. It says, Aunt tries to ruin my wedding. I'm getting married tomorrow, and my aunt just tried to ruin my wedding by creating chaos because what else would she do? This aunt has a long history of accepting invitations to events and then creating some elaborate story days or sometimes hours before to not come. However, she seemed excited enough this time, and I thought maybe it was an important enough milestone for me, so she will finally show up. Keep in mind, I've been talking to her about the wedding frequently. She showed me a dress, asked for directions to find the venue, asked me to invite her sons. Originally, only her was invited because I didn't have a strong enough relationship with them, and because we're having a small wedding. We invited her months ago, and until yesterday, I would never have guessed what has transpired in the last 24 hours. My aunt messaged me to ask me to invite her mother, a very ill and fragile lady who's 92 years old. I said yes, and that I needed to check with the venue to accommodate her. Her mum uses a wheelchair, and she travels with a nurse. So it wouldn't be only her, but also the nurse that I had to make room and get food for. I spent hours trying to figure things out with the venue folks. Keep in mind, this is happening in 2 days before the wedding. After that initial message, she then said, No, sorry for asking, it was rude for me to ask you that close to the date. She went silent, didn't answer messages or phone calls for more than 12 hours. But she sent a message to the group chat with all the guests saying she wouldn't attend, but said nothing to me directly. I messaged her again thinking something bad has happened. I was so worried about her. Then she finally replies back and tells me that she's deeply offended, that she could not tolerate anyone making her beg for her mum to attend any event. She never had to beg, by the way. Oh, and she adds that she still loves me, but that it was a very rude thing for me to do when I was told by her before many times of the fragile state of her mum and how difficult it was for her to be outside. I told her that I was trying to be mindful of her condition and that it is a very hurtful thing to do, and I was disappointed by her actions. She then proceeded to tell me that I was closed-minded and that she was not going to attend because I did not deserve her presence and that I was not that young anymore. I should be sleeping right now, but needed to write this down somewhere to make sense of what happened. You said at the very start that she's got a long history of doing this, and then she pulled that shit on you. You know, I think she's done you a favor here, and in the future, just keep her at arm's length, I think. But shortly after this, OP came in with an update, which was after the wedding, and says the wedding was a great success. I was crying tears of joy the whole time because our friends and family surprised us more than once with gifts and gestures to show their love. I'm not a very extroverted person when it comes to throwing parties, and this experience of planning a wedding had me very anxious, but the result exceeded any expectations. I write this from my bed while I'm sore all over from so much dancing and laughing. As for the toxic aunt, I sent her a single message, goodbye. After that, I blocked her everywhere possible and showed my family the messages. They all told me to send her to hell together, and there she will stay, more alone than she already is, with her lies and her poison. I don't even wish her ill. I just don't have any more time to waste on an abusive people. Thanks to all the comments I received on this post, I felt mentally at peace enough to completely forget about her. Thanks for all your empathy and kind words. OP then comes in with another update titled The Aunt Strikes Back and says she recently called, something she rarely did before, my mum, because someone in her family ended up in the ER for reasons I don't know. She then proceeded to tell her how much she loves me and that it was all a misunderstanding from both of us. My mum ended the call by singing my praises and telling her how happy we all were in the wedding. I told my mum about this post and all your comments, and she agrees that the aunt should be on permanent no contact situation with all of us. We all now recognize how much she just wants to play the victim and that she's all alone for a reason. And absolutely fair play to OP in this situation for, just dealing with this shit, cutting her out, permanent no contact. But I'm sure there will be attempts further down the line from Aunt to keep trying to get back into your life. But what do you guys make of that situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's have another story from the Pro Revenge subreddit from Broad Ads, who says, Cheat on your wife with mine? I will burn your life to the ground. Way back in the early 2000s, I began to suspect that my wife was up to something. Our two kids were about 4 and 6. Still young, but not so young they couldn't tell you something about what had happened in their day. They started talking a lot about staying with my wife's parents during the day, which wasn't really that strange in and of itself, but since they lived about 90 minutes away, doing so 2 or 3 times a week seemed a bit much. That was basically every day she wasn't working at a part-time job. When I asked her about it, she denied it, but was never a good liar. So I started tracking the mileage on her car, and sure enough, she was driving an extra 400 or so miles per week. I knew some shit was going on. Then one day I sat down at the computer and she left a sticky note with her AOL password, takes me back, written on it next to the keyboard. I could not resist and logged in to read her emails and saw a few email exchanges between her and a college BFF, where they discussed how my wife was regularly fucking one of her ex's boyfriends from high school. No mention of details about him other than my wife. Also talking shit about his wife, making fun of how she'd gotten fat after having kids. Anyway, I printed out all these email exchanges and stashed them. I still needed to know the details. So I called a friend who was a cop and he suggested I call a guy he knew that had left the force to become a private investigator. Ron was great. I paid his retainer and gave him the emails and what little I knew about my wife's activities, and he figured out exactly what she was doing. His report detailed with photos, times, dates, locations, all about how she would take the kids to her parents, then go to meet this guy for lunch. Then they'd go to a dumpy motel for a few hours, after which she'd pick up the kids and return home. At this point, I hired a divorce lawyer. My parents cheated on each other and the fallout absolutely fucked mine and my siblings' childhood. It was something that was totally unacceptable. I also asked Ron to find out what he could about this guy. Ron absolutely came through. I learned his name, Bob, that he was married and had 3 kids. I also found out that he worked as a VP of sales for his father-in-law's business. At this point, I had my lawyer draw up the divorce papers. I also asked Ron for a couple copies of his report and one more thing I wanted him to do for me. On the same day I had my wife served with divorce papers at her work, I had Ron meet with the guy's wife and show her everything he'd found out. She seemed nice and I figured that she deserved to know what her dear hubby was up to. What she did with that information was up to her. All the information about my wife's infidelity didn't really matter in my divorce proceedings. Bob's wife did a real number on him, according to the publicly available court documents from the divorce and other related proceedings. She cleaned out their joint account, took the kids, and left. As soon as her dad found out what he'd done, Bob was fired, and since her parents actually owned the house where Bob and his wife lived, he also got evicted. Their divorce was ugly. Lots of fighting in and evidently out of court. I guess Bob went to the house and started arguing with his wife, and it escalated to the point that her brother stepped in, and Bob got his nose broken. There was restraining orders, a few more incidents with police reports, criminal charges, jail time, and so on. I can't find Bob on the internet anywhere these days. Last I heard, he'd left the state and his ex-wife did okay. She went to work at her dad's company and took over after he retired. As for me, my ex and I get along well enough. I didn't engage with her on anything that wasn't related to the kids, and now that they're both adults, I don't talk to her at all anymore. I don't hate her or anything, but I only care in the context that she is my kid's mum, and that is important to them. Nothing beyond that. And loads of people on the back of this one just saying how maturely Opie handled this and, that he didn't get more angry about it. Opie replied to those comments and was saying, I was definitely angry with my wife, and don't get me wrong, I made her suffer through the divorce. For example, she wanted to try couples therapy, and I agreed. Not because I thought there was a path to reconciliation, but because it felt good to lay out exactly how I felt about what she had done. How disgusted, disappointed, and angry I was with her. She always left those appointments in tears and would sit bawling in her car for a while before pulling herself together. Eventually she realized that it was already over for us and cancelled the remaining appointments. I also had to think about what was best for the kids. I wasn't going to bring the chaos I experienced into their lives where I saw my parents screaming at each other, my dad calling my mum a whore, and worse, and vice versa. It was in their best interest to make things go smoothly. I never told them the details of what happened between their mum and me, and I probably never will. I don't know what she's told them about it, but I still have Ron's report stashed away in case they need to see the truth. Also, I wasn't really angry with Bob for my own sake. I was angry with him on behalf of his wife. I felt like she deserved to at least know what was going on, and what she chose to do about it was up to her. Bob's consequences are due to his wife's and probably her dad's rage at what he'd done. I just lit the fuse. Opie also added, yeah, I'm all good now. Got remarried a few years later, and we're still going strong. I'm as crazy about her as when we met. Kids are alright too, off doing their thing. I see them pretty regularly. And I gotta admit, I was kind of just shocked by Opie's sort of maturity about this as well, the way that they dealt with it. It probably doesn't help getting angry and going mad about it, does it? But I always think of the other side of this. On the days off, she was driving, 90 minutes? 90 minutes to drop the kids off, so assuming she was coming back to where she was afterwards, 90 minutes each way to have some food with someone in the bunk up. And it's just who's got time for this? But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story from the Entitled People subreddit from Blue Dandelion, who says, Entitled men leaving their drinks on our table didn't expect us to fight back until we did. So I got into a fight with two people tonight. The reason in itself was very dumb, but God, I was just tired of it. I met up with two friends, Clara and Jenny, fake names. We went out to a bar and sat at one of the tables outside. There was a TV on the bar, so there were many people watching a football match with different drinks. We got our drinks, and after a while, a man came, left his drink on our table, and left. We looked at each other like, what the hell? The bar is literally 5 feet apart, and there weren't even that many people. He could have easily put his glass there instead of on our table, but whatever. We kept talking and drinking, and after a while there was another man who left his finished drink at our table. I can leave this here, right? He asked. Didn't even wait for an answer, and left. Again, what the hell? We were annoyed, but whatever. Then came a polite guy, and he asked us if he could leave his drink on our table for a bit because he was waiting for a friend. It was cold and his hands were freezing. We said, yeah, of course you can, man. No worries. He even offered to put it on the floor if it annoyed us, but we had no problem with it. Gave the drink to his friend, thanked us, then they left. And after a while, another drink was left on our table. The guy didn't even look at us, just put it there, and it was obvious it wasn't finished. So I had had enough. It may seem petty, but you aren't sitting at this table, therefore you don't use it. If he had asked us if he could leave it there for a moment like the previous guy, we would have had no problem. But he didn't. Rude. So I took the drink, got up, walked towards him, and offered it to him. I said, excuse me, this is yours. He said, what the, is it bothering you that much? Opie said, yeah, it is. It hasn't been the first time, and we aren't the bar. If you're finished with your drink, the bar is 5 feet apart from you. A friend of his took the man's drink and put both his and his friend's drink on the table to piss us off. So I got up, grabbed the drinks, and took them to the bar. I knew they weren't finished, and I knew they'd be annoyed. But that's what happens when I run out of patience. I don't care anymore. They said I was being ridiculous while I walked away, and when I came back, Clara was yelling at one of them and tugging on one of the men's arms. I saw that she had my umbrella on her hand, and I realized that when I was returning the drinks, they had tried to steal my umbrella, and Clara was getting it back to me. Jenny had been in shock, but at that she started arguing as well. They got more and more rude, saying as we had no manners when I had been nothing but polite with them. It was only when they yelled at us that we started to yell back at them. We kept telling them that it wasn't their table, and that if it was only for a moment they could have asked us, and we wouldn't have minded at all. At one point, to piss us off, one of them got dirty cans that had been on the floor and put them on our table. I threw them away while still arguing with them. One of their friends apologized to us and looked so embarrassed. They went away for a bit, and one of them came back for more, until we pointed out how he was a grown 50-year-old man harassing and arguing with women in their 20s over a table and a drink. The friend that had been supporting knew at that moment that they were embarrassing themselves, because he came back and told him, come on man, you're an adult. If you want to watch the football match on the TV, then fine. And if you want to get a drink and there aren't any tables left, then that's a you problem. If they had asked you like the third polite guy, we wouldn't have minded, but instead they blew it up because that's how drunk and bored they were. There were even people on our side telling them to leave us alone. I feel a bit silly now. I have a more clear head for how I behaved, but God, I was just so tired of people using our table as if it was theirs at that moment. I never insulted them, by the way. When I say I screamed at them, I mean that I kept remarking how it was our table and to leave us alone. Edit 1. I'm seeing a lot of comments saying that the staff should have done something or wondering why we didn't tell the staff. First of all, in my country, there aren't bouncers at bars. They are at discos. Second, most people who were drinking outside would go to the bar, get a drink, pay for it, then leave and drink it outside. Finally, it was busier inside than outside, and there weren't many workers. And the ones who were working were doing everything at once, with some of them acting as both waiters and as bartenders. They probably didn't even see nor hear what was going on outside due to how many people were inside. There were 2 just drunk, idiotic men, and we were able to handle them. It all happened pretty fast anyway. Edit 2. I've seen some people say that it's a public table. We aren't at the long bar table, where people usually leave their drinks, so that the bartenders can get them from other sides to clean them. We were outside, at a small square table, and said table had 4 chairs for people to sit down on. Imagine you go to a restaurant to have lunch with your family. You get served your first plate, and a stranger suddenly puts his drink on your table. That's the kind of table we were on, but smaller. I'm kind of glad that OP cleared it up at the end there. And, I'm not saying OP's wrong or anything like that, but like in some UK pubs, when you go to them and there's sports on the TVs and you're at the tables and, the place is just packed, the bar's packed, the tables are packed, you generally get like people who will stand next to the tables and put the drink on the table that you're sitting at. At my local pub anyway, it's generally considered okay to do that. Again, I'm not saying OP's wrong in this situation. It was just what was going on in my head at the time. Whenever I read these stories, I imagine sort of myself. So I imagine myself in a UK setting across at my local pub. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. I do like a bit of entitled people. It brings out like those random things that happen in day-to-day life, And we got another one from the entitled people subreddit from Yeetikus who says, neighbor thinks my car is his personal Uber now because our work routes match. A few weeks ago, I finally bought a new car. Nothing too flashy, but it's a big deal for me because I've been saving up for a while. Got lucky also. Anyway, I was feeling good about it. One morning I was driving to work and saw my neighbor walking down the street. We're friendly but not super close, and I figured I'd be nice. So I pulled over and asked if he needed a lift. He happily accepted, and during the ride we realized we worked fairly close to each other. No big deal, right? Well, apparently that one ride turned into an unspoken agreement. The next day I saw him standing at the same spot, clearly waiting for me. Oh no. I thought, alright, whatever, I'll give him another ride. But now it's been every single day since then. Rain or shine, he's there. No text, no asking, just standing there waiting. That's quite terrifying in my opinion. At first, I didn't mind too much, but now it's getting on my nerves. Some mornings, I just want to listen to music, zone out, or even stop for coffee without worrying about someone else's schedule. I even tried leaving earlier once, thinking he'd get the hint. But nope. Next day, he mentioned how he must have missed me. I don't want to be a jerk, but I never agreed to be his personal chauffeur. I was just trying to be nice once. Now I feel awkward bringing it up because I don't want to cause any weird tension with a neighbor. Would I be the bad guy if I just started running late or having meetings in the morning? Or should I just straight up tell him I don't want to give him rides every day? Painting says, had a similar situation with a coworker. My free rides lasted 7 years. In total, he gave me $10 for gas. When I wasn't on a shift, he gave people money or bought them lunch here and there. I confronted him about it and he said it was on my way and didn't cost me anything. So I replied, if we get in a wreck and you get hurt, would you sue me to cover damages? He said yes. So I replied, fine, I won't make you pay for gas, but you need to pay half my yearly auto insurance of $700 and some odd dollars. He freaked out, but I never gave him a ride again. Keep in mind, his wife could have given him a ride, but she didn't want to. I used to know someone some years back who, you try and do something nice for them or buy them something that's nice for them. And instead of like a thank you or anything like that, it's, oh, you chose to do that. Why should you get a thank you, I just think, fucking hell, man. What goes through these people's minds? I didn't do stuff for a thank you, but that kind of attitude as well. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today, getting involved in the stories. Your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me, so thank you so much. And hopefully, I'll see you in the next one. Take care, and much love.
I've been thinking about your smile. I've been thinking that I can't let you go. Hey, can you hear